Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the HODLNOTS weekly warm-up. I'm John.
I'm Vicky.
It's the news at 9 a.m. UTC, where it's currently 5 in the morning in Florida. With that, let's get into some of the crypto headlines that have been making headlines over this past weekend. Starting off with Vicky.
Yes, and actually back to Florida, or where Florida is, because interesting times, which could be why Bitcoin has taken a bit of a dive. So the US court rules Trump's tariffs illegal. So what is next for Bitcoin? Now, the cryptocurrency markets seem to have experienced the adverse consequences of Trump's tariffs against essentially every country in April, or at least the threat of, resulting in a massive price decline to multi-month lows, as we've all seen recently. So, although the president has continued to impose such taxation on some nations while reducing the rates for others, more controversy arose last Friday when the US Court of Appeals ruled that the tariffs are illegal. So, the US Court of Appeals ruled on Friday that most reciprocal tariffs are illegal. Some of the nations that were hit were such as China, Mexico, and Canada. And the court, in a 7-4 decision, rejected Trump's argument that the tariffs were permitted under the Emergency Economic Powers Act, instead the ruling called them invalid and contrary to law. So the president was quick to respond, posting on his social media platform that the tariffs are still in effect, adding that the court's ruling was incorrect. So we are but mere pawns in the game at the moment. So we're going to have to look to see if that is going to, what's going to happen to Bitcoin soon, next couple of days.
Absolutely. And from pawns to
Mm.
prawns and to whales. So much like the previous story, where the tariffs are playing a role in a little bit of the market shake up, shake out, Bitcoin is also at risk today, that being a Labor Day in the States, of a crash potentially to 105,000 as sellers capitalize on an OG Bitcoin whale threat. Now, we have mentioned this in last week's weekly warm-up. We spoke about the whales that have been starting to sell off, but that's with a bit of a catalytic action from tariff news and other such things are creating a potential worry for some. So Bitcoin liquidation heat maps, okay, we're not going to get too technical with this, are currently favoring sellers who continue to overpower the bulls in spot and futures markets despite the return of dip buyers. Buy the dip, buy the dip of the dippity dip. Closed markets on this day in the States, Labor Day itself on this holiday, and the threat of selling by OG Bitcoin whales could send a Bitcoin down to 105,000 and below. We did see it dip down to 107,000 earlier in this day, the 1st of September. Notable transfers and selling from long dormant whale-sized Bitcoin wallets and the conversion of proceeds to Ethereum. More on that later. Declining inflows to spot Bitcoin ETFs and end of the week weakness in the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq from last week are all weighing on investor sentiment at the moment. Adding to this pressure is President Trump's back and forth rhetoric on these tariffs, as previously mentioned, and the market's reaction to the president's attempts to take control of the Federal Reserve Board as well. So you can see that there are a number of factors at play here. Bitcoin OG whales, politics around the tariffs and everything else, but more on that to come as well. For now, another story.
Yeah, interesting times we're in, but a good news story. Yay. So, Tether is in the news, and we talked about this. I can't remember if it was this or on a happy hour hangout, that Tether is announcing plans to launch USDT on the RGB Bitcoin network as such. So RGB, which actually stands for really good Bitcoin, is just a layer on top of the Lightning protocol. So they're going to launch USDT on that soon. So RGB, which recently went live on the Bitcoin mainnet, is designed to extend Bitcoin's capabilities beyond being a store of value by enabling private, scalable, and user-controlled asset issuance. Through the integration, USDT will become transactable natively on the Bitcoin network, combining the security and decentralization of the world's largest blockchain with the scalability of Tether. So, in its official press release, the company also revealed that users will be able to hold and transfer USDT alongside Bitcoin within the same wallet. So, the benefit from private and sovereign transactions and even exchange value offline. So that's interesting news. When they launch it, we're going to no more shuffling wallets around Bitcoin. We're going to be able to do it on one wallet, which is great news.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen this
Mm.
in the decentralized side of things and wallets, and we're starting to see this
Mm.
in the more decentralized and normal wallets where most of these big transactions are happening. So exciting times, positive and negative. Now, going back to a little bit of the previous story that I mentioned, we have mentioned in the last week's and the week before that speak about the OGs of these Bitcoin holders. These guys are holding 104,000 Bitcoin from way back when. So one of those whales, one of them who sold off that 24,000 Bitcoin for what was it, $1.7 billion and started to create a little bit of a sell-off trend. This whale now holds $3.8 billion in Ether in a sign of market maturity. Now, we will get into this at a later point as well, but we are starting to see a bit of a swap of focus from Bitcoin to Ethereum. Now, this whale, over the weekend, 12-hour buying spree, must be so nice. This Bitcoin OG whale gobbled up 96,859 Ether spot Ether after selling 4,000 Bitcoin. This Bitcoin OG whale now joins a string of other whales who have been trading out Bitcoin and buying Ether for the first time. Analysts have said that it is a sign that the market is maturing and that whales are diversifying in light of positive regulatory moves in the US. And I think we are starting to see a lot of people do this as they see the or realize the potential in the largest altcoin for good gains in the long term. I mean, hell, if you've been buying Bitcoin for years and years and you've made some really good returns, diversification is good. Vicky.
Yeah, it's not just people that are diversifying. The governments seem to be diversifying as well because there's a news story about Link, so Chainlink, and Pyth. And I just want to shout out because one of our fairly newbies called Pyth in the den the other day and it ran and ran and ran. So good on him. He's not on the call, which is unfortunate. His name's Michael. He's a slight newbie and it was a great call. And this is maybe why it ran because the US government is going on chain with Chainlink and Pyth to publish its official economic data. So the US government has contracted two of the biggest decentralized oracles, one being Chainlink, one being Pyth, to publish its official economic data on chain. So according to the announcement, Chainlink will distribute data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, including the real GDP, the PCE price index, and the real final sales to private domestic purchasers. The company clarified, or Link clarified, it may add more feeds either by public demand or government request, as well as adding support for several blockchain networks. And Pyth as well is going to publish under the Department of Commerce mandate, and they will also publish GDP data. So the government is also pivoting or expanding its crypto usage and going into some of the alts, which is Chainlink and Pyth, and that's really good to see.
Absolutely. I know a couple
Mm.
of people who are very bullish on Chainlink, and we're finally starting to see Link itself do really well. Come back. There's been a resurgence of some of these OG altcoins, and now we're starting to see real life applications. So that's great. That's great news. Very bullish on both Pyth and Link. All right. Speaking about bullishness, we're speaking about global adoption. We're I don't know, 14, 15 years in terms of, cryptocurrencies and crypto usage and growth. I mean, we're still early, right? So if you're here right now and you own some crypto, you're early. Now, you might have heard of a gentleman by the name of Raoul Pal or Raoul Pal. He is one of the OGs in the Bitcoin space, analyst. He sees crypto users hitting a whopping 4 billion people by 2030. All right, that's 5 years away. So, Real Vision CEO Raoul Pal also predicted that the total crypto market capitalization could reach $100 trillion within the next decade, even as early as 2032. So, according to him, the total crypto user base has grown by 137% annually over the last 9 years. So think about that. When you first got into crypto, how many of your friends, family, people you knew, or even global population count were really into crypto, and how much it's grown year on year? So he predicts that, no, he says that it has reached 659 million users by the end of last year, 2024. In comparison, the total number, and this is where we've spoken about internet adoption. You guys might have seen that chart that kind of shows the adoption of the internet from the 90s and how it became parabolic. Now he refers to this and he says that in comparison, the total number of internet users hit 187 million by the end of 2000. So we're talking about the end of 2000 after a decade or so. And now we're looking in comparison 659 million compared to that 187 million. So he predicts that the number of crypto users will grow by a moderate 43% next year, reaching 1 billion crypto users by 2030, or 1/8 of the global population. He's saying it's going to be even more, 4 billion. All right. So that is huge adoption. Can you imagine as more and more people globally start to use crypto or have crypto and they trade, they hodl, he was going to see the demand increase. We know there's limited supply of Bitcoin as an example, but as application comes into play, we've covered a number of stories around this with real estate, groceries, etc. Crypto is growing phenomenally, Vicky. Very exciting.
Yeah, and it is exciting because now more people are starting to talk about it. And that's what we talked about in the last happy hour hangout about how does Bitcoin reach $1 million?
Mm.
And adoption was really, that was it, adoption from everyone. So it's really good to see that other people are starting to talk about that as well. And speaking of adoption, this is real world adoption now, which is fantastic. So Circle, who brings you USDC, teams up with MasterCard and Finastra to push stablecoin settlements globally. So stablecoin giant Circle is pushing stablecoins deeper into the financial system with two fresh integrations. So the company disclosed arrangements with MasterCard and Finastra designed to move USDC beyond crypto and into everyday banking and commerce. So MasterCard will open settlements in USDT and EURC for acquirers and merchants across the Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And the first regional player to participate will be Arab Financial Services and Easy Financial Services. So in parallel to MasterCard, London-based software vendor Finastra has wired USDC into its global Pay Plus system, which is a core payments engine said to clear more than 5 trillion each day across borders. So with the upgrade, banks in 50 jurisdictions can settle obligations directly in USDC while still transmitting payment instructions in conventional fiat. So USDC has made a big jump with MasterCard and Finastra into the mainstream banking. So that's real world application now.
We did cover a little bit on this circle adoption within
Yeah.
MasterCard. I think it might have been 2 weeks back. But this is huge, especially when you companies like Finastra are clearing 5 trillion US dollars a day. And that's huge for Circle, USDC, and MasterCard. Wow.
Yes. And I might have a fun fact as well. This is nothing to do with MasterCard or Finastra, but it has to do with Bitcoin. So the fun fact is we talk about this a lot. This is all about global adoption and who is doing what. So did some research, and even though we talk a lot about institutions buying up Bitcoin and buying and buying and buying and MasterCard and Visa and banks, believe it or not, the Bitcoin ownership is still 65.9% in the individual. So you and me, and you and you and you and you and you, everyone that has Bitcoin, it makes up 65.9% of the Bitcoin out there that people own. So it's 7.8 for funds, 6.2% for businesses, and only 1.5% for governments. So the other thing is about 7.6% of Bitcoin is believed to be lost, which we actually have talked about before. So interestingly enough, you and I and you, like I said, make up the majority of the people that own Bitcoin. So even though it sounds like they're buying a lot, it's actually not as much as we think, but they're probably going to catch up, I'd say, because they keep buying.
That they do, but this is an interesting thing, ladies and gents, and it's
Yep,
kind of ironic that I'm wearing this t-shirt today, so I can just pull it up quickly, see if you guys can see it. It says, "We are Bitcoin." All right,
Bitcoin.
we are all Bitcoin. So if 65.89 or what a percentage it was, 65.9%, we are
Yep.
Bitcoin. We hold Bitcoin. We, the individuals, not the governments. We know the governments are trying. We know that these institutions, BlackRock, everybody else, are all trying to adopt. But as long as we have control, it stays decentralized. Fun fact. Thanks, Fix. Moving on from the crypto news, let's have a look at what the index is telling us, Vicky.
Yes. Well, the index is nearly exactly the same as last week. So it's actually at 47. It was at 46. Oh, no, it's at 46. It's at 47 last week, which really means that even though there has been a big drop in Bitcoin, people are really almost, they're just laying back just to see what happens. They're not panicking. They're not buying. They're actually just making sure that everything is sensible, sitting back to see what happens, which is actually really good news because I think the last time this happened, everyone was like, ah, and everyone sold. So well done. We just really have to see what happens moving forward.
Absolutely. Speaking about let's
Mm.
see what's happening, we have mentioned in one of today's crypto headlines, 105,000. If that hits 105, I do believe we're going to actually see a little lower. So let's go have a look at what the charts are saying, because there is a bit of FUD going around, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We know there's news around the tariffs. We know the OG whales are selling their Bitcoin to buy Ethereum. So we're not going to cover Ethereum, but we are going to be covering what is happening over in Bitcoin side of things as well. So having a quick look at the Bitcoin daily chart at the moment, Bitcoin having recovered from a couple of lows over the last 3 days, last 4 days, hitting around the $107,000 mark. It is trying to come back at the moment, but as you guys can see, and again, HODLNOTS, you guys have the HODLNOTS indicator. You do have a number of things telling you what kind of trend we're in. So what we need to see, we need to see Bitcoin break up, get past up here again. So yeah, at the moment there is a lot of uncertainty and doubt, and we know that as soon as Bitcoin starts coming down again on the day, we're going to see most of the altcoins start to drop down. Even Ethereum will take a bit of a knock, but what we might start seeing because of these Bitcoin OG whales selling their Bitcoin. When Bitcoin does start to come up again, I think we might see a nice strong resurgence in Ethereum itself, a lot stronger. But again, speculation. We are going to trade what we see, ladies and gents. So at the moment, Bitcoin not in the greatest of spaces. It is trying to make a bit of a comeback. And if it can break above 110 and we get to about 112, 113 again, we'd ideally love to see us back in the 114, 15, 16, $17,000 range. So be careful. This is my advice over the next day. If we start to see Bitcoin break down again, we're going to see it come down and come down until we can probably find some support in and around 100, 101 maybe. But it just depends on yeah, what these whales are planning. Having a quick look at Bitcoin dominance, and again, not as I'm going to say this clearly now. Bitcoin dominance does not have as much of an effect for us who trade altcoins when Bitcoin is in a strong downwards trend. What do I mean by that? All right. So Bitcoin dominance, just a reminder for everybody else. Bitcoin dominance really does show, and I'm just going to make it simple here. All right. You can see this just general downwards trend at the moment, and it has reached what we call a bit of a support area. It's not going to break down here. And in a way, I do not want it to break down any further. Okay. Don't be shocked by what I just said. Just hear me out. We would like to see, okay, so and let me explain one more time quickly. Bitcoin dominance is in terms of the percentage of cash flowing into the crypto space. Where is it flowing in terms of Bitcoin percentage of the overall market? So currently, Bitcoin cash inflow is sitting at about 58%, which is not bad. I mean, it used to be up at 65%. In order for Bitcoin to recover, okay, besides, spot ETFs, Bitcoin whales not selling. In order for Bitcoin to recover, we need, as we showed you, we need it to start breaking up again. All right, finding support in and around here. How is it going to do that? Well, the OG whales need to stop selling, but we need to see the return of those dip buys and all the BlackRocks and strategies and everybody else. It is Labor Day in the States, so just be aware that we might not see that much action happening, but we want Bitcoin to go up, right? How are we going to see that? How are we going to know that? There are a number of different charts and heat maps and everything else, but to keep it simple, we'd like to see the inflow of cash into Bitcoin out of the whole crypto market cap increase. So I wouldn't mind it going back up to about 60% thereabouts. That'll give Bitcoin hopefully enough of a respite for it to be able to come back up again. And once Bitcoin has stabilized on that day chart, then it can drop right out of its hiney. All right, it can drop all the way through, and we'll all be fine. So at the moment, sideways is okay. If this goes down, that means money's flowing into the alts and not into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin coming down will bring the whole market down. So what's the point? All right. So we'd like to see a bit of a respite for Bitcoin itself. Let Bitcoin breathe, let it go up, let it stabilize, and then altcoins can take over. Speak Matt, Vicky, over to you.
Exactly. And we will, in the lodge, will be the first to know because in the den and the lodge, everyone will be talking about it and everyone will be trading it. So, for those of you that don't know, what is the den and the lodge? HODLNOTS. Everyone that has completed the HODLNOTS course gets to go in a room in Telegram called the lodge where we share everything really. And we also have a room called the Den, which is open to the public, but it is mostly HODLNOTS that have done the course as well. And that's where we trade. And I'm going to tell you just quickly, because it's pretty much the same every week, what calls are going to happen in the lodge. So we do have help calls happening in the lodge all the time. And this week in the lodge, we start off as we normally do by tomorrow, on tomorrow with Wendy's call at 8 a.m. UTC. So all of the lodge members can jump on her call and she will train and trade with you. And then the week continues on Tuesday with the first of our weekly calls for those enrolled in our self-paced HODLNOTS call, and that's at 12 p.m. UTC. And then there is an extra call, which is going to be quite exciting because there is some news around this, and we have a room for those of you that have completed the 3M challenge, or those of you that aspire to complete the 3M challenge. We're going to have a special call for the Black Bears, and that is only for the Black Bears. And there's going to be an interesting announcement in there. So not on the call, but watch this space. And that is on Wednesday at 7 a.m. UTC. And then that's going to be followed at 12 p.m. UTC this week on Wednesday with our own John hosting the HODL Fire call this week. And 2 weeks ago, there was a cracker call on bio, which ran. So let's see. I mean, the market dependent because it's not the same market as it was in 2 weeks ago. But we'll see what we can find on the HODL Fire call for those of you with a subscription. And then a little later in that day, the first of our HODL dot calls at 8 p.m. UTC, which is on the journey on the way to the Black Bear Cave. So those of you that want to do that, that is at 8 a.m. UTC. And then the Thursday as well, we have another help call for the self-paced people at, again, 12 p.m. UTC. And then also on Thursday, we have that's it. So there also, I mentioned this last week, sneak peek, just watch the calendar in the lodge, watch the lodge, because there might be a few impromptu calls in the lodge this week as well. So just watch out for that. And that's really all that's happening in the lodge. Always a
Awesome.
lot. Oh, there we go. Celebration.
All right, ladies and gents, we're getting to the tail end of this session today. So we've been running a contest over the last 4 weeks, and we've dropped a number of letters mimed by our mime over the last 4 weeks. No one's guessed any of the words yet. All right. So there might be a new letter today. Those were the letters. So we've had that letter and that letter and that letter. We've had four letters. All right. So far, so good. All right. We want to know, and you can actually do this in the large. All right, because we're going to wrap this up shortly. If you want to guess what that word is to be eligible for a 30-day HODL Fire subscription, go into the lodge and tag Vicky and be like, I think the word is this. All right. Again, it might be four letters, it might be five, it might be six, seven, eight, nine, who knows? But you need to start guessing if you want to be eligible for that. All right. And then let's step into this week. First day of spring down in the southern hemisphere. Well, it's the 1st of September, but not technically first day of spring. But anyway, what thought are we going into the week with, Vicky?
Yes, well, first day of spring in the Southern Hemisphere, as you said, almost. I think it's on the 22nd, actually, but we always say it's the first day of spring on the 1st of September, and it's been lovely weather, and we need to get healthy. We need to stay active. So, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, especially if you throw it really hard.
All right. With that note, no, doctors are good. Doctors are important. Fantastic, ladies and gents. We hope you learned something in this weekly warm-up. Keep an eye on the charts. There is still a little bit of murky water ahead, a little bit of shakeout. For those of you in the States, enjoy your Labor Day, and we will catch you guys on some of the calls in the lodge this week. Otherwise, same time, same place, next week, Monday. Until then, bye.